It's a little after 7 in the morning. The travel lift has just set a brand new center console down on the stands, and the owner hasn't even taken delivery yet. 6 figures of boat. Smells like fresh gel coat and money. And I'm standing under the transom with my moisture meter, running it across the laminate just below the engine bracket, and the needle climbs. On a hull that's never seen salt water. Then I tap along the transom with the back of my knuckle, listening, and right there, low and to the starboard side, the sound goes from a sharp, tight crack to a flat, dead thud. That dull note is the sound of a corner that got cut at the factory, and the man who's about to pay for this boat has no idea it's there. Now, before I go one word further, let me say this plainly. This is general information from one working marine surveyor. It is not a professional survey of your boat, and it is not financial advice. Always have any boat independently surveyed and inspected before you buy it. Nothing I say here replaces a set of trained hands on the actual hull you're considering. Here's why that dead thud matters to you. The new boat you're about to put a deposit on this summer. The gleaming one on the showroom floor with the big screens and the soft vinyl. A lot of what makes it feel solid is on the surface, where you can see it and touch it. The shortcuts are buried in the places you can't. And right now, in 2026, the way a lot of these boats get built has changed, and not in your favor. I survey boats for a living. Buyers hire me to crawl through a hull and find what's wrong before the money changes hands, and I'll tell you what I've watched happen. An investment group buys up a builder, a brand with a good name, and 60 years of trust behind it. Then somebody in a spreadsheet decides the build cost needs to come down 15–20%. The name on the side of the hull stays the same. The boat under it does not. That's not a conspiracy, and it's not bad luck. It's documented business reality, the kind that's been written up in the trade press for years, and you were simply never told. So stay with me, because I'm going to walk you through where the money didn't go inside a modern hull. The real shortcuts, one at a time, what each one does, and what it costs you when it fails. And at the end, I'll show you exactly how to catch every one of them before you hand over $1. I'm Sam Holloway. Let's get into it. Let's start with the bones of the boat. The stringers. Picture the frame of a house, except it runs the length of the bilge, down the center line, and out toward the chines. And it's what the deck, and the engine, and your whole floor are bolted to. The stringers carry the load. Now, for decades, the cheap, fast way to build a stringer was to take a length of plywood or solid lumber, lay it in, and glass over the top of it. Wood is stiff, it's cheap, and a thin skin of fiberglass over it looks identical to a far better part. Here's the fairness of it. A wood cord stringer that's been fully encapsulated, sealed on every face, and kept bone dry will last the life of the boat. There are 40-year-old hulls running today on wood stringers that are perfectly sound, because the water never got in. That's the catch though, and it's a big one. The moment water finds a path to that wood, and it always finds a path eventually. A screw driven through the stringer to mount a bracket, a hairline crack in the glass, a fitting that wasn't bedded. The wood wicks it up like a sponge, and it begins to rot from the inside, where you cannot see it. The skin over the top stays shiny and perfect for years, while the core underneath turns to wet pulp. The better build, the one that costs the factory more, uses a composite or closed-cell foam stringer, something that physically cannot rot because there's no wood in it to rot. When the spreadsheet wants its 20% back, the foam goes and the plywood comes in. And you, the buyer, never see the substitution. So what does a rotten stringer cost you? This is where it stops being academic. Recoring stringers is a structural repair. The yard has to cut the deck open, dig the rotten core out, and rebuild it. On a mid-size boat, you are looking at, realistically, $10,000 to $20,000, and on some hulls more than the boat is worth. People walk away. They abandon the boat over it. On a survey report, soft stringers is the single line that kills the deal, every time, and the buyer thanks me for it. Now hold on, because the next one is the one most people don't even know to ask about, and it's hiding right under their feet. The coring. Most modern hulls in almost every deck are not solid fiberglass. They're a sandwich. a skin of fiberglass, then a lightweight core in the middle, then another skin of fiberglass on the other side. The core is usually end grain, balsa wood, or a foam, and honestly, this is good engineering when it's done right. It makes the boat lighter and stiffer at the same time, and a lighter boat burns less fuel and rides better. I want to be fair about that, because the sandwich itself isn't the shortcut. The shortcut is what happens at every single place the builder cuts a hole through that sandwich. Every cleat, every rail stanchion, every screw, every through hull fitting passes through the core. Done properly, the builder over-drills the hole, digs out a ring of the core around it, and fills that ring with solid resin so the fastener is sealed in a watertight plug. That takes time. Time is money. The fast way is to just drill straight through and run the screw, leaving raw, bare core exposed to the bedding compound, and, eventually, to water. And once water gets into a balsa core, the same thing happens as the stringer. The wood rots, and because it's sandwiched between two sealed skins, the water travels sideways, soaking outward through the core, wet area spreading season after season while the surface still looks flawless. With a foam core, you don't get the rot, but you can get something just as expensive, which is delamination. The skin's letting go of the core, so the panel loses its stiffness, and you start to feel a soft, spongy give underfoot on a deck that should feel like concrete. That sponginess is your warning. People feel it, tell themselves the carpet's just a little loose, and keep walking on it for 3 more years. The repair means cutting out the skin, replacing the wet core, and reglassing, and on a large deck or a wet section of hull that runs into the thousands fast. Easily $5,000 to $15,000 depending on how far the water has tracked. And here's the honest part, the part the hype channels won't tell you. I cannot give you an exact percentage of new boats that leave the factory with under-sealed core penetrations. Nobody publishes that number. There is no recall database for a screw that wasn't sealed right. But I can tell you the pattern I see on the stands, week after week, and it is not rare. It is common, and it is getting more common as build costs get squeezed. Let me tell you about the man who taught me to read a hull, because he's the reason I tap before I trust. Years ago, I apprenticed under an old surveyor and boat builder named Maddock, a man who'd laid up glass by hand back when that's all there was. Maddock used to say a boat will lie to your eyes all day long, but it cannot lie to your ear, and it cannot lie to a moisture meter. He'd run his knuckle down a transom and call the wet spot before he ever pulled the meter out, and he was right more often than the meter was. I carry that forward on every inspection I do. The shine is for the brochure. The sound is the truth, which brings me to the laminate itself, the actual fiberglass the hull is made of. And this is where I have to be honest about a mistake I made early on. When I was new at this, I'd thank a thick hull. Thick felt strong, so I'd see a heavy layup and feel good about it. I had that backwards. Thickness is not strength. How the glass is laid is strength. Here's the difference. The cheap, fast way to build up a hull is a chopper gun, a tool that sprays chopped up strands of glass and resin onto the mold in a thick, soupy mat. It's quick, it's cheap, one worker can lay up a hull in a fraction of the time, and it makes a thick part. But chopped strand is short, random fibers swimming in a lot of resin, and resin is the brittle, heavy, weak part of fiberglass. The strength comes from long, continuous fibers. So a hand-laid hull, where a person lays down woven cloth and rolls the resin in by hand, or better yet, a resin-infused hull, where they vacuum the resin precisely through dry cloth, has long fibers and the right resin-to-glass ratio. It's lighter and far stronger than the thick, resin-heavy sprayed hull, even though the sprayed one might measure thicker with a gauge. What does a poor layup cost you? It's not usually a single dramatic bill. It's worse. It's a hull that flexes more than it should, that oil cans, that develops stress cracks in the gel coat radiating out from every hard point, and that simply doesn't hold its value, because the surveyor for the next buyer is going to find exactly what I'd find. To be fair, a sprayed glass hull on a small, light boat run on a calm lake is plenty of boat for that job, and I won't pretend otherwise. But if you're paying premium money for a hull you expect to run offshore for 20 years, a chopper gun layup is not what you thought you were buying. My verdict, and I'll mark it as opinion: ask how the hull is built, and if the dealer can't or won't tell you, that silence is your answer. Now let's go below the waterline, to the gel coat, the smooth-colored outer skin, because there's a slow, expensive failure that lives down there, called osmotic blistering. Gel coat isn't completely waterproof, no matter what the brochure implies. Over years in the water, moisture very slowly works its way through it and reaches little voids in the laminate underneath, where it reacts with leftovers from the manufacturing and forms an acidic fluid. That fluid wants to expand, and it pushes the gel coat out into blisters, sometimes a few, sometimes a hull peppered with them like a bad case of the measles. Boaters call it boat pox. Here's the fairness beat, because the internet panics about this, and it doesn't always deserve the panic. A handful of small blisters on an older hull is often cosmetic and nothing to lose sleep over. Plenty of sound, valuable boats have a few. The shortcut that turns a non-issue into a real one is the builder using a cheaper laminate or skipping a proper barrier coat to save cost and shorten the build. A hull built with a good barrier coat and quality resin below the waterline resists blistering for decades. A corner-cut one can blister badly inside a few seasons, and when it's bad, the fix is a real one. A full blister job means hauling the boat, grinding off the gel coat below the waterline, letting the hull dry out for weeks, and laying on a fresh barrier coat. That is a $5,000 to $15,000 job on a typical boat, and it knocks the resale down hard, because the next buyer's surveyor, me, is going to find it on the very first haul out. So my verdict here is calibrated. Don't run from a couple of old blisters. Do run from a hull that's blistering young, and have any boat you're serious about hauled and looked at below the waterline before you sign, because that's exactly where the cheap build hides. Now we get to the small stuff that sinks boats, which is the hardware and how it's mounted. Every cleat you tie up to, every rail you grab, every winch, takes real load, and it's only as strong as what's behind it. The right way to mount a piece of deck hardware is with a backing plate, a flat plate of metal or thick fiberglass on the underside of the deck that spreads the load across a wide area, plus proper bedding compound, sealing the bolt holes against water. The shortcut is mounting that cleat with nothing but big washers, or worse, just the bolt heads pulling straight against the gel coat, and skipping the careful bedding to save a few minutes per fitting. 2 failures come from that, and both cost you. The first is structural. Pull hard on a cleat that's only held by washers, in a blow, with the boat surging on the dock, and it can tear clean out of the deck, taking a chunk of deck with it. The second is the slow killer. A bolt hole that wasn't bedded right lets water seep down into, you guessed it, the core. And now your unsealed hardware is the doorway that rots the deck I talked about earlier. It all connects. The fairness of it is that on a calm water boat that never sees a real load, you might go years and never notice. But the repair, once water's tracked in or a fitting's torn out, is core replacement and reglassing again, the thousands again, plus whatever the failure broke. On a survey, loose, unbacked hardware tells me how the whole boat was built, because a builder who cut that corner cut others I haven't found yet. My verdict: reach under the deck if you can and feel behind a cleat. If your fingers find a backing plate, that's a builder who cared. If they find 2 little washers and bare bolt ends, take the warning. And the last one, inside the hull, the one nobody thinks about until it cracks, is the bulkheads. A bulkhead is an interior wall, a panel of plywood or composite that runs across the inside of the boat. And it does a lot more than divide the cabin. It's structural. It stiffens the hull, it stops it flexing and twisting in a seaway, and it's usually bonded to the inside of the hull with fiberglass tabbing along its edges. 2 shortcuts show up here. 1. The bulkhead itself is too thin, an underbuilt panel chosen because thinner plywood is cheaper. 2, and this is the common one, the tabbing that bonds it to the hull is skimpy, a thin, narrow strip of glass instead of a proper wide bond, again to save time and material. Here's the mechanism. When the bulkhead is underbuilt or underbonded, the hull around it flexes more than the designer ever intended. Over time, that flexing cracks the tabbing, the bulkhead starts to separate from the hull, and you get stress cracks appearing in the gelcoat in lines that, to a trained eye, trace exactly where that bulkhead is hidden behind the liner. To be fair, a separated bulkhead is a slow failure, not usually a sink at the dock emergency, and a boat can run with early tabbing cracks for a while. But it gets worse, never better, and retabbing or replacing a structural bulkhead means tearing out interior to get at it, and that labor runs into the thousands. 3, 5, sometimes much more depending on how buried it is. My verdict: when I see gelcoat cracks marching in a straight line across the cabin sole or up a cabin side, I don't see cosmetics. I see a bulkhead letting go behind the liner, and I check it hard. So let me bring it home, because here's the thing I most want you to walk away with. Now you understand where the money didn't go. Stringers, core penetrations, the layup, the gelcoat below the waterline, the hardware backing, the bulkheads, and almost every one of those shortcuts is invisible to your eyes on the showroom floor. That's the whole point of where they hid them. But they are not invisible to 3 simple checks, and you can do 2 of them yourself before you ever pay a surveyor. First, the moisture meter. It's the tool you saw me run across that transom, and a basic one costs less than a tank of fuel. You run it across the transom, the stringers if you can reach them, the deck, the hull, sides below the waterline, and you watch for the needle to climb where it shouldn't. Wet readings on a boat that should be dry are your single biggest red flag. Second, the tap test, the one old Matic taught me. Take the back of your knuckle or a small plastic mallet and tap your way across the transom, the deck, the cabin sides, anywhere there's core, and listen. A good, dry, well-bonded laminate gives you a sharp, ringing, tight sound. Wet core or delamination gives you a dull, flat, dead thud. Sharp is good, dead is trouble. You will be amazed what your own ear can find. And third, the simplest of all, walk the whole deck and the cabin sole in your bare feet or soft shoes, and feel for soft spots. Any place that gives, flexes, or feels spongy underfoot when the rest is firm. Softness underfoot is delaminated, wet core talking to you through your feet. And then, when those 3 tells point you to a boat that might be the one, that is exactly when you hand it to a professional for a proper survey and a haul out, because a meter and a knuckle in your hands narrow it down, but trained hands on the actual hull, with the boat out of the water, is what protects 6 figures of your money. The 90% in the title, I'll be straight with you one more time. I can't hand you a published study that says 90% of new boats are garbage, because no such number exists, and I won't invent one for a thumbnail. What I can tell you, after a career of putting my hands on these hulls, is that the shortcuts are real, they are documented, and the squeeze on build cost is making them more common, not less. The number is provocative. The pattern under it is true. Believe the pattern, and check the boat. If this saved you from a hull that would have drained your bank account, do me a favor and hit like. It genuinely helps the channel reach the next buyer who's about to make the mistake. And drop me a comment. Tell me the make and the year of the boat you're looking at, and the old hands who watch this channel will tell you what they know. Next time I'll cut into the outboard hanging off the back of that hull and show you which motors are built to last 5,000 hours and which ones are a $3,000 repair waiting to happen. Buy smart, stay afloat. I'm Sam Holloway. I'll see you back at the dock.